All right, everybody, good evening and welcome to, hard to believe, October's caucus already. And just to get started under announcements, before I introduce our incredible group, I would like to thank all of our principals for their incredible hard work, and I will more formally announce that at our board meeting coming up in October. But October is National Principals Month, and we have outstanding principals at every building, and we're fortunate to have them, and we want to thank them, and we will formally thank them at our board meeting coming up. So I'd like to thank our students for coming on a kind of a gloomy Tuesday and joining us here at the first day of October to talk about a really exciting challenge-based learning activity that they're doing under the leadership of Mr. Shepler. So I'm going to turn it over and to learn more about this, and I think you'll find this to be as exciting as I certainly do. So thank you for coming.
Can you hear me now? All right, awesome. All right, I'm going to have you guys go ahead and distribute these to the board members while we get started. So they're going to hand out kind of one of the things that we're using as our promotional material for this, but we wanted to talk to you guys tonight about something that we're doing here at the end of the month. This is something I decided to try new, and this class, including these guys that are here tonight, have really embraced this, and it's something we're really excited about. So I just want to, can you guys only see behind you, the slides? Is that, okay, so I want to talk about a couple things up there real quick, and then I'll hand it over to the kids. I won't talk long. So challenge-based learning is project-based learning, it's student-centered learning, and it's a focus that we've taken at the district level this year. One of the things that you'll see across the buildings is being encouraged and things like that. So challenge-based learning is just one of those types of student-centered learning, and it's where kids are taking standards from our class and they're putting it into practice with real-life applicable things. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but you can see that basically project-based learning is broken into 3 phases. It looks at things like big ideas and essential questions. Students use those to develop challenges. They do investigation to get the background data, the things they need, and then they act on that. And so I'm going to talk about this cycle quickly with you guys tonight, and the kids are going to talk about their part of this and what we're excited about for this. So if we go to the next slide, Ms. Matash, basically here's what I came up with for the kids this summer. We were looking at some big ideas, and part of my curriculum as a civics teacher is obviously to look at civic engagement, and obviously with an election coming up, this is a great kind of connection for this. So we're looking at the big idea of civic engagement and voter turnout. We looked at some essential questions to kind of drive our instruction and for what I was doing with the kids. And again, this is more on my side of things, like the teacher side of things, kind of where this comes from with tying to standards and things like that. So they're seeing this kind of for the first time, how this was driven. But you can take a look at this. We were looking at these essential questions of increasing youth voter registration and also just voter registration turnout in our community. We also looked at why it's important for young people to participate in the voting process. And we're using these things to guide this challenge that we wanted to try to mobilize our community to vote and participate in elections through voter registration. So basically, this was that kind of pre-plan phase and what we were looking at. So I brought this in and I had to change completely how we were doing things at the beginning of the year because we had to get this started before October. But basically what we're going to talk about with you tonight in a couple of different phases is going to end with a really cool culminating event, October 17th, where my civics classes who have done all of this through their own planning, including the flyer that you have tonight, Kara Hawkins-Smith designed this on Canva, did an amazing job. All of these kids did different things. Wanted to put together a voter registration drive that we could hold here for really Perry County, and specifically we can focus on getting people from our community, but really the entire county. So I also will say this now, just to allay fears. We are not, through any of this, endorsing any candidates. This is not about that. This is not about active campaigning. That will not happen. This is simply about getting people voted or registered to vote, to participate in elections, and to have some information there for them to be informed about candidates. That is all this is. So I'm going to move into the next phase. I'm going to have Chance come up here with me. So if we go to the next slide. So as a teacher, right, the kids had to understand where this all went. Why was this important? And so one of the first activities we did was this investigate phase, where students looked at some things about voter registration. So I'm going to let Chance kind of talk about what we did and a few of the things he found out.
Yeah, so over the past month or so, we've gotten to understand what voter registration is to hold this event, and we looked into the main pillars of voter registration and learned that it ensures fair representation, empowers communities, encourages civic responsibility, helps hold leaders accountable, and strengthens legitimacy in who gets elected. And
talk about the activity that we did there.
yeah, so we basically started from scratch. We did our own sketch notes and designed like pretty much what it looks like, breaking it down, what it's all about, and pretty much just went from there with the rest of the process.
So the first phase. Thanks, Chance. So the first phase was them looking at, right, some of these things, some of these challenges, and the importance of having more people participate in elections. And so that was done with some of their good examples. Thanks, Chance. All right, so we moved from that, and this was still part of investigating and getting this background information. But if we go to the next slide, the next part of this was to do some specific research on demographics. And so what you'll see, and I'm going to have Jersey speak about this activity, was this next phase of investigation. So Jersey.
Okay, hi. So the next phase we did was we investigated. We had a bunch of different sources looking into different demographics and different, like, what we really look at when it comes to people who vote and the type of people that vote. In the bottom right is actually my group's like thing that we made. Our subject was gender, so we found out that a lot of the times women will vote with their husbands. So, whatever their husbands decide to vote, the women will vote the same. We also found out that there's been a really big increase of women voting within the past few years, and men's voting has gone down by like 44%. So this part is really important for us because obviously we're going to have the night where everyone gets to come out and we have a bunch of people doing a bunch of different things at once. But this is really the information that is going to help us figure out what type of people are going to need to come to this event to get registered. So that's... Oh, yeah. We used the Freeform app on our iPads. It was actually really easy. Most of it, we just did a shape, and then there's a bunch of different shapes and stuff. So we did the stars, we did change the colors of everything. Yeah, I was getting to that. Freeform makes it really, really easy for us to actually create the graphs that you see on there. With whatever it comes to changing the numbers and just changing the amount so we can actually correct it when it comes to the statistics that we were using. So is that...
All right, so this was step 2. So I needed them to get some background for this. So it was really interesting. And honestly, some of their findings and stuff like that, they're going to share at the event that we're holding. So they'll have these freeform boards there. And they're excited to kind of show the graphs that they created and some of the statistics they learned. Some of them were concerning to them. And, we looked at kind of just these different things, and they thought, well, they made some sort of predictions and things like that based on why some of these groups might not vote. And they even had to come up with ways that they could try to get that demographic to vote. So, when they looked at some of the rural, one of the geographic factors, we had Garrett Lingle did that and looked at rural areas and the lack of voter registration or getting out to vote. And he came up with some ideas. Again, there might be some things around these, but they looked at how they could get these demographic areas to be able to vote more. So that led then, with this investigative work, to our act. So our act is to create a social media campaign to get people to register to vote and to give them that opportunity through a voter registration night. And so I'm going to let Berkeley talk about the first thing, which was the social media campaign.
Okay, hi guys. So we created these things, we created these by using the recent things as shown. And we use them to promote our voter registration night, which is October 16th from the 6th to 8th. 17th, sorry. Hopefully we see you guys there. And these were completely non-political and unbiased. And we created them in Canva. And that's basically it. They're super easy to make.
And they're going to be used through some of our...
they'll be used through social media for 17 days. So there you go.
All right, so the kids did an awesome job. If you take a look at the Facebook page, we're going to be using Kathy. I don't know if Kathy Kisner's still here, but the kids put together created all these media posts. These might have been a couple of my favorite, but there's 17 that the kids voted on, and they're going to be appearing to get us for this evening for the evening to get that. I'm also reaching out to a couple other. Actually, the kids have sent the emails, but they're going to be reaching out to a couple other places to get this out there. And we'll talk about that. I just got off the phone with Joyce's, Representative Joyce's secretary about getting it maybe posted through some of that stuff as well to try to get people out to this event. So if you guys have anybody that you want to pass this along to, we're really trying. These kids have put an effort together. We're really trying to get people out for this evening. All right, so the last part of this then is going to be the voter registration night. And I'm going to let Natalie talk about that and kind of what we did.
So a group of students in the civics class got together and we drafted a bunch of emails to send to the the PA state representatives, Perry Stamball, the PA state senator Greg Rothman, and then the Perry County voter registration office and the Perry County Republican and Democratic Party. And then the ones with the check marks are the ones that are guaranteed to be coming. So like mentioned before, October 17th is the date of the event from 6 to 8 in the high school gym lobby. And then what we want to get out of this event, it will provide the public with the opportunity to register to vote and gather information about candidates running in the upcoming elections, just to hope that through the graphs that were shown before that we can increase the voting turnout in this upcoming election.
And so if you want to go to the last slide real quick, we would love to see you guys there if you've got time for this. It is, like we said, the details are on this paper for you guys. The kids are really excited about it. We're going to try to get this pushed wherever we can. It's been really cool. And, every year I'm here with you guys and talking about how much they amaze me. But it's been really cool. Like as a teacher, you want to hear kids say stuff like, I really like doing this. Or Chance, who doesn't say a whole lot in class, said the one day after we were doing all of this investigative phases, oh, now I get why we're doing all this. Like it made sense when we started to talk about that ACT phase and where it was going. So some of these things that I'm hearing kids say, it's really, really exciting. So I'm really excited about it. These kids are really excited about it. Like I said, they've been amazing talking about it, creating every single element of it, contacting every single person about it. And we are excited for that evening. Like she said, I know right now, we heard from Stamball's office. Most likely he'll be here. Senator Rothman, which there are our local representatives. That's why they were invited. Rothman is trying to get it on the schedule. The Perry County Republicans and Democrats will be here with information. And then we also have the Perry County voter registration office that'll be here with those ballots. They'll have those ballots, they'll have mail-in ballots, and then we'll also have students helping with that part, assisting with that. We'll have some iPads set up that if people want to do the digital registration, they'll be able to do that evening as well. Students will be out sharing what they learned statistic-wise. These kids were even like, hey, can we feed people if they come? I was like, I don't know. But so they're going to have some light refreshments provided that they signed up, they took care of. It's does that kiss Dr. Foxon? So it's going to be an awesome evening, and we're really excited. Again, one of our focuses, and the reason that I tackled this is because it is, I think, important to me, and it's obviously, as a civics teacher, in an election year, it's really cool. But we've got some other teachers that are starting to jump into some of these types of projects as well. I just talked with Mr. DeLellis. I know our new teacher, Lynn Reeder, is jumping into a media campaign with, I forget what it is, what her actual project is. And then I know Miss Lote, our phys ed teacher, is working on one with a mental health kind of focus to it with the health thing. So it's something that hopefully you'll hear more about from other teachers as well. And yeah, so I just want to thank these guys for being here tonight. If you guys have any questions or anything like that, we can answer them. But we would love to see you there on October 17th, even if it's for the brownies.
You knew I'd have a question. First of all, I applaud you guys. This is awesome. I think it's great. I'm a big proponent for civic duty and people being involved in that, and from youth all the way through. So kudos to you guys. Two things I thought of. One, on your media campaign, the one thing I love about this flyer is that it says that you should bring your driver's license and your last 4 digits of your social. I didn't see that on any of the social media.
So we're gonna, you're right, on those actual things, we are gonna still have things that we're gonna write in, like so that post will be kind of the main details, but we'll be adding that throughout as well,
Yeah, that's
to remember
huge, right?
people for
Yeah,
that.
so
Absolutely.
that they bring that with them.
Absolutely.
And then this year it's probably too much to bite off, but maybe for thoughts for the future is tying in the acquiring of absentee ballots for recent graduates or kids that are left Susquenita but are in college that want to be able to vote in the election, but they're not coming home to vote. So they have to do it by absentee. I have 2 in college. I'm finding the process to be a little cumbersome, much more than I thought it would be for them to be able to get their ballot, get it in time when they're home, even though they've applied for it weeks ago because the ballots weren't done yet. And now that they are, then it becomes you have to have a designated somebody sign to be able to take their ballot to Perry County. There's a whole lot of different stuff that they put in place in the last couple of years. So, but it might be some way to maybe the next time you guys do this, to maybe reach out to our graduates and helping them with the accessing
Yeah,
of
that's
getting
awesome.
absentee ballots and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Cool.
But great job.
Just real quick, yeah, amazing job. I'm hoping we could get something on our district sign when it comes closer about that. But something else I've talked about in the past, and probably not everyone would agree with me on, but I wanted to say something to the kids. Maybe they could share the word. Like sometimes most of us have been elected to the school board through an election, but every once in a while we have a board member who leaves the board due to an illness or something. And when that happens, we advertise for a board position, and then someone who's 18 or older just needs to be interviewed by the board and can get appointed to a seat on the board. And I actually talked to Dr. Fox about this recently. I think it would be amazing to get an 18-year-old or recent graduate on this board. Technically, you could be 18 years old, a senior in high school, and sit on the school board. I mean, it has its own set of issues, but I've seen it. So, and I've talked to my own son about it, like spread that word. So when we have seats open, yeah, Jersey would be great, seriously. But we have seats open. You may not think about it if you're only 18 or 19 years old, but if there are seats open and you're not somewhere off to college, you could do your civic duty by running for it and getting on the school board. What better way to really understand and know what's going on in our schools than to have someone on our school board who has been there? Now, not everyone would agree with that because some of us bring a maturity to it, so it would be nice to have some youth, I would say. So you don't have to be old and frumpy to get on the school board. So I just wanted to bring that out again, and maybe you could share with others. There's real possibilities for you to become more involved in your school once you turn 18.
Absolutely. Thank you. All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.
and
We really
thank
appreciate it.
you.
We hope to see you guys there.
Real quick, we all applaud you for being here this evening and sharing. And we know when you engage and you're a part of your process, you're apt to learn, and it becomes that long-term learning. And when I look at the connections of the things that you're already doing, being personally responsible, being engaged citizens, and being strong communicators ties in greatly to our portrait of a graduate that we have, and you're well on your way. And we appreciate all of your work and reaching out to the greater community. So thank you.
Good job.
Transitioning into some agenda items for resignations, leaves, transfers, and employment. For next Tuesday's board meeting upcoming, under personnel, it is a little late. We do have leave of absence for Mrs. Davis for some intermittent family leave, a successful completion of a 90-day evaluation for Hannah Welter, accounts receivable and taxes. Mrs. Welter has done an unbelievable job in our office, really tackling and adding that additional responsibility of collecting taxes in the interim for Penn Township, while that process is looking for their full-time tax collector. And she's done an unbelievable job of that as well, and hitting the ground running, and really her second day of the job. Co-curricular assignments, Megan Newmeyer as elementary school team lead for special education, and a band front guard instructor in Jessa Diaz. And it's winter season, so we began that process of looking at some winter coaches already as we look at boys basketball, JV, and for Sam Freeburn, head coach Brandon Steckley, boys basketball 8th grade coach Adam Timchak, 7th grade coach Dan Boyer, head girls coach Blaine Leonard, and 8th grade coach Olivia Brady, and head wrestling coach, we're excited to welcome into that position Corey Fleischer, ably assisted by Jeff Quigley, and middle school coach Eric Hurt, and bocce coaches Annie Fisher, and Mary Ellen Brown. And we have some volunteers to complement as we continue as well. And we appreciate all of our volunteers who spend an enormous amount of time supporting our programs. I'm excited to see a lot of returning coaches as we continue to build those programs, and we know that the amount of time that they spend in season and off season to continue to work with our student athletes and to make them better versions of themselves, not just as athletes, but as people and as students. Going right along with some agenda items, is there any questions, I'm sorry, before I ramble on to agenda items? Under agenda items for October thus far, we have some minutes and approval of some treasury reports. We will look for first reading of policy 226, which is student searches. Second reading of policy 137.1, which is district program participation in a home education program. Number 10 is a temporary contract with the PA Principals Association for interim middle school assistant principal. That individual's name is Mr. Stanley Roche at the middle school, and Mr. Roche is a retired administrator, has done an incredible job. We've had the pleasure of knowing Mr. Roche in the past and being able to get acquainted with him as he comes and helps us out in the middle school. Act 80 Day, February 13th, 2025, and I apologize, this was a miss on the calendar. This should have been labeled as an Act 80 Day for that half day for parent and family communication. And we are looking at just some updates and some informational items such as our sick bank report and finishing up. And thank you to all of our booster clubs who sent in the financial reports multiple times. And as we work in that process of ensuring that you have that ability in accordance to Board Policy 915 to review those reports. Any questions on agenda items at this time? All right. We're going to continue with me and go into review of finances. I'll direct your attention into two reports. The first report is revenue. You'll see the revenue report does look a little shy for this particular month. Revenue in terms of tax collection, thanks to the hard work of Mrs. Wisen and Mrs. Welter and Mrs. Feltenberger in our office, as well as Kathy Metz, who stepped in and has done an awesome job for us. And we thank Kathy for all of her hard work. Unbelievable time that she's worked in our office, and we really are appreciative of her. But the revenue, it just needs to be, there's more revenue collected at this point, it needs to be added into the report and into our system here as well. But it's not uncommon for this time of year as revenue starts coming in from the Commonwealth and as the final amounts of federal grants become available as well, you'll start seeing those numbers inching up as well. Under board summary for expenses, we are right around where we were last year in terms of expenses, so running pretty parallel. We're about a 1% increase this year in terms of expenses of what we have expended thus far. You'll see some categories should be commonly spent. This report has really came into play for us as we look and analyze this report to ensure that items that are being procured are being properly codified in accordance with our system as well. So we'll continue to bring these reports to you. Is there any questions as you review this report? Please feel free.
Yeah, I have a question under other objects where it says we've used about 59% in that particular category. At, 800 at the top, and then it looks like, well, there's a couple, it looks like it was support services and for admin and pupil. So I guess last year we got used to the fact that there was a lot of stuff that wasn't coded correctly, so it was just other. So this year I was hoping that we were coding the same things as we had before, even though we have a business manager change. So I just am curious as to why other is already at 59% used, if indeed we are spending money on things that were other and that's what we budgeted for, or whether we're finding yet again things that were coded incorrectly, so we're just throwing them into other, and that's a large expense again. Does that am I making sense? So maybe, I don't expect you to have the answer now.
Well, no, I think I can answer some of that question. I think there's always going to be elements, honestly, where we're going to go back through and have to pull reports and make, within categories and account descriptions, making the proper reclassifications. That's always going to happen. I think that is just the nature of kind of movements within it and getting and looking at some of those elements. But I think in terms of other objects and what is being spent there, without taking a deep dive, it could be that those items are actually in that particular category and it falls within that charts of accounts, that is the proper category for those.
I guess what I'm saying is, can you have someone check that? Looks like we budgeted under 800 other objects, $905,000. So of that, of the 59% that we've spent, did we purchase the things in the budget that were categorized as others, or are we finding things miscoded or coded differently? I know there will be some element of that, but one of the things that we've been trying to do is to be consistent with the coding, because for the last 3 or 4 years, with the change of business managers, we haven't been able to compare apples to apples. So I guess my question is, of that 59% used, how much of that was used to purchase things that we had coded other in the budget, and how much of that is other because it was coded incorrectly? Am I making sense?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. And I think the key to that is also looking at that. You're going to see 59%, and I think there's 2 parts to that question too. The first part is it, so we'll investigate what those items are and just take a look at those to ensure that it fits within that subcategory of 800 other objects. But looking at the original budget of $905, that's, when you look at
dollars. Yeah.
Yeah,
dollars.
it's difficult, at that point, spending 532 definitely expends that category pretty quickly, depending on what that item is. And so it's just kind of a cross-reference of
I just don't
reviewing
want to
what
see
those
that
items
being
are.
200% in January. Like the stuff we had last year, because things weren't coded correctly. So we were going to even see if we get our new business manager to try to code things correctly, so that when we actually do a budget, we can make some comparisons. And it already seems.
Yeah, I think our
it's
entire
skewed.
team has been working extremely hard in doing those, and there's going to be that rebalancing that we're going to have to do for sure.
Yeah, and I think, 59% of $800 isn't a big deal, but when you look at some of the other lines where it's other objects and it's 40,000 or 63,000 dumped into a line item of other objects, that's a little bit more concerning of what have we budgeted in other that we were trying to, I think, recode. Right. Now, very well, it may be classified there based on the classifications, and we just need to go back into our line item budget that we have from when we went through budgeting and look at that, because they may very well be there. It's just how it gets rolled up into other, and it makes sense for it to be there. But
And that's all,
when you
that's
look
exactly
at it
right.
in this lump, it's like, why is $63,000 budgeted into other, or $40,000 budgeted into
And that's
other?
all, exactly, thank you. That's all, that's what I'm asking, is the money, and I happen to pick the least amount of money in the other categories. But if we can just check to see if that's stuff that we budgeted for, if it's something else.
Do we still have access to that very nice spreadsheet that was made that rolls everything out? Okay. Then we can look at that and see, and maybe answer our own questions. We wouldn't know what they bought, but we would at least have an idea of what gets rolled up into that. $63,000 is my point. To know whether, what actually constitutes that 63,000 or 40,000.
Well, I think the question may be, is this report, do you want a different version of a report? And if there is, we can certainly look at the system and see if there's a different version of a report to give you that includes a little bit more detail to those expenses.
Yeah, but I think what Mike is trying to say is that we don't want anything in those categories. That should be like an emergency use thing for stuff that's other.
Well, I get what you're saying. I think there is still, and I can.
So if there's still stuff budgeted in there, it should probably be moved.
Well, there might be, I originally went there in my head too, but there might be things that, like, blue marbles. Well, there's no place to put blue marbles, so it has to go in other. I understand that. But what I'm saying is I understand that we spent 85% or 74% on supplies, because you get all your supplies, you buy them in the summer, you get them. So that number makes perfect sense. But when we're already in this way over 50% in other category, it just causes me to question, like, why. But this report is great. I wouldn't want a different report.
But I think that's my point, is if we have access to the information by going back and looking at that sheet, we approved the budget, and the budget had spelled out what went in this other, because it broke it down, category by category, line by line, that we could look at that. It's more of the fact that right now what we're saying is that when it's in this big lump as other, we don't really know what that is, but we can go back and look at that and say, oh, okay, that's what that is, and that's how that makes sense. Certainly, I mean, I could look at supplies and say, well, that's very generic. I have no idea what goes into supplies. That could, somebody could categorize supplies as just about anything. I write budgets all the time, and supplies could really be very broad, but we're okay with that. We're just not okay with this very broad term of other, but yet we can go back and look at it on that spreadsheet. We just don't know exactly what they've bought, but we've approved what they could spend it on.
Right.
Does that make sense?
No, it makes sense, but if other was a $43,000 piece of equipment, I'm sorry, and we haven't bought that yet, and we've spent 80% of other, then I just don't know what. Like, I'm okay with everything else, supplies, whenever we know what supplies were, crayons, markers, stuff. I understand. I'm okay with all that. I just don't know what the other objects are, and maybe it made sense to buy all those other objects in the summer. Maybe not. I just don't know. So I guess maybe another way of looking at it, Dr. Fox, is as our business people are going through this, if they find, this may be the easier thing, or maybe hard, I don't know. I don't want to make more work for the business office. But as they go in and they go to categorize something and they find that was miscategorized before, maybe someone can start just keeping track of that, or highlighting it, or coloring it, or something, so that they can look over, anyone can look over and say, these are all the things that were not categorized correctly in the budget before, which is why some of these categories are off. Judge, I don't want to make it that difficult, but I also, as a board member, feel like I need to do my due diligence to make sure that when I look at the budget from year to year, that I'm actually able to compare the two budgets. And we have not been able to do that for years. So in September, and I see 59% of a category called other, it just raises my question. That's all. Again, I know we're in a not great place with the business manager not here yet.
So, go ahead. No, please.
No, I'm maybe I should wait until you. I think what I thought I was hearing, but now I'm wondering if maybe I'm not, is that when we have a business manager here, like when Mr. Holmes was here, and he would do a monthly report like this is going to be a question, I guess. If he went down and said, okay, looks like everything's moving at 10 to 15%, but he has a category that's at 70%, I presume he looks at that and goes, why are we at 70%? Because that sticks out, right? So as long as monthly that internal audit is being done, and I understand that now without a full-time business manager here, that's going to be multi-person's job probably at this point of looking at it. But I thought to Mike's point, he seems like he's more saying, you've got this 59% category. Is somebody looking at that and going, why is that so high? And maybe it's because all the dues payments, I'm saying, making up something, we're all due in August. And so that's where 70% of it's going to get spent, and nothing else is going to get spent until April. That's, I think for me, that would be the thing, is just to make sure, especially in this time that we don't have a business manager full-time, is somebody looking to see those red flags that pop up and kind of self-auditing every month. Is that, if that's happening, that would be what, more so for me than what exactly was the spent on, that for me, as long as somebody's looking at it.
Yes, and I think that's what makes these reports valuable that we run each month, to be able to look at that and then dig in deeper as to why. There could be an absolute, really good justifiable reason why a category is expended 110%. Well, something was encumbered and it shouldn't have been in that particular category, and that category then needs to be moved to a different category, or that was a placeholder and it was double booked, and we need to go in and just make sure that that's off inside of our financial software and check that. Those things, yes, will be happening on a monthly basis as we look at the reports and have those internal conversations to see what are those categories, where are we spending, where are we getting with revenue, and it's an all hands on deck approach.
And that's exactly what I'm saying. Are we on track or not? But the gentleman who's going to be saying we're on track or not is here temporarily working on this, doesn't know the history. So he might be like, nah, I want to put this here. And if he's doing that, we need to know that, you need to know that, so you could be like, no, we're going to put it where it was supposed to be. And then when we get our full business manager, then maybe she will do whatever. But just because you're new and you did this for years and you're retired, whatever, you know where it should go. No, we're going to put it where we had it in our budget, because that's, if I understand correctly, what our board wants to do. And then when Stevie Jo comes on board, then she can have that conversation. But I just want that check.
Yeah, we all try to follow the same charts of accounts, and we all will try to follow those particular categories and what was budgeted in those categories and what is not, and then have those conversations internally to move those into the proper categories. Really, what we look at is what was, if there's a procurement item, was that item an item that was previously budgeted for inside of what we approved. From there, is it a serviceable item? Is it an emergency repair? Is it a part of a repair that's associated with some of our maintenance that was already approved under that particular category, to make sure we're trying to do our best to stay true to that particular category? So yes, lots of movable pieces when it comes to that, as well as working in tangent with our auditors to see, because again, there's going to be some changes that have came through as well that the state is requiring, and more specificity associated with each particular school, and making sure that each particular school is broken down into categories. So I think we were a little bit ahead of that last year with how we broke the budget down, and I think we'll see that into a little bit more granular that it's going to need to be as it gets put into that financial report for the state.
And to Phil's point, I would rather see the other number be as close to zero as we possibly could get it.
And I think if you look at across this report, the other object codes for each category, budgeted amount for each category, is relatively really low. I think there's only one that looks like it's high, and that's student activities. That's a pretty high number in relative to the total number budgeted for that category. So like usually there's millions, and then there's $905 in the other. So I think that they did do a good job of trying to get that number as low as it could be.
Yeah, but in the 1100s, there's 500 other purchases, services is $1.8 million.
What?
That's on
That's
page.
personnel
That's
and
on page
salaries.
1. That's what?
That's personnel and salaries.
There's
How's
only
it
one
called?
800
Other
code.
purchases, services.
Oh, that's, they were specified underneath those, though. I'm thinking when I was looking at the 800 code, which was just other objects.
So maybe what it'll help is I'm going to go ahead and I will make sure and I will share out the full, so you see exactly what we see. And it's the charts of accounts, and this charts of accounts report is extremely lengthy, extremely cumbersome and tedious, but yet it breaks down into those categories where you will be able to see what each of these categories says. And then when it says other objects, it will, in this chart of accounts, say specifically what is authorized to be put in the other objects and what you can and what has to be put in there versus what can only be put in those others. So in other words, like 0153, other accounts receivable, amounts owing an open account from a private person, firm, or corporation for goods and services furnished by an LEA. So there's really specific requirements associated with each of those particular areas. So maybe that will help, and that way you can kind of maybe take a look and cross-reference those same reports that we use on a regular basis, because I'm many things, but an accountant is certainly not one of those. And we do our best to try to ask questions as to the how, what, and where, and then take a deep dive into what are those areas in purchases, procurements, or, as you just said, what is being spent and classified to that category, so we can ask the questions, is that the right category for that?
I actually have a question. So you had indicated that under our revenues that not everything was posted.
That's correct.
Is everything posted for our expenditures?
To this date right now, to my knowledge, yes.
So at this point then, what I hear you saying is that our expenditures are only hitting at about 16%, and we could expect to be seeing greater than 17% of our revenues, which by September 30th, we should be seeing 25% of revenues and 25% of expenditures. Either way, not having all of our revenues posted, our revenues are still outweighing our expenditures, and we don't have all of our revenues posted, correct?
We do not have all of our revenues posted. That's correct.
So regardless of what's in each line item that is spent, and whether we've expended all line items, overall, our revenues are still outpacing our expenditures.
Without seeing that posted, I can't make that bold.
Based on what we have in front of us, and not everything being posted for our revenues.
I think that would be a fair statement.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the only problem, my only caution on that one is I remember getting kind of excited about that last year. And I remember Mr. Holmes saying that there's stuff that doesn't always get spent proportionally, right? So we could be outpacing expenditures in the spring because more things become due in the spring than what are due now.
Right, but for where we're at right now, our revenues are outpacing our expenditures. Yes.
Correct.
It all depends upon where certain higher cost things are due.
Yeah, yeah.
And Dr. Fox, I just wanted to reiterate, personally as a board member, I don't need the office to do all the work, sending us all those documents. I probably will not look at them. I probably won't understand them. I just want, when we have these things, to be able to ask questions. And my simple question really is just a very simple question. I want to just make sure that we're not just throwing things in other because the persons who are currently doing it don't agree with the way it was done last year. I think it was a kind of a goal that we set as a board to make sure that we try to code things the same way. I just want, it just seems off. It may not be. I just want you to double check and see. Maybe we have spent like 59% of what we budgeted under other categories. Or maybe we spent 10% and the other 49% are things that we threw them in there because we didn't like the way they were coded. I don't really need you to go into doing all the extra work, all that other stuff. I just need that question answered personally. So I don't want to create all that extra work for your office. Personally, I don't know how anyone else feels, but.
Any additional questions on finances? All right, we will transition to curriculum overview. Ms. Snyder?
Thanks, Dr. Fox. Everyone, we have a really exciting October planned. A lot going on in academic operations, especially 2 teacher professional learning times coming up this month, one being October 14th, where we are actually going to have a full day in service, lots of different activities going on at all the buildings. We have science at the elementary. We have outside providers coming in to provide some structured training for our elementary teachers. We have a group of teacher leaders of our own presenting on structured literacy to our middle school and some of our high school staff members. We also are planning just to do some rotations of curriculum writing for middle school and high school math and science, just to keep those things moving and continuing from the summer work. And also, little surprise celebration plan for our Apple Distinguished District designation. Christine and I are working on that. So really excited for October 14th. And then we also have a 2-hour early dismissal on October 25th. So that's going to provide some time for us, depending on the building and what the building needs are, that we'll be able to provide some professional learning and support, or some time for teachers just to work on end of the marking period things that they need to as well. We are also going to continue and have continued this month working on elementary curriculum and also middle school and high school math and science, and moving after our in-service day into planning some times, hopefully before the end of the year, that we can work with our different team members to keep that work moving at the middle school and high school. And then also really excited because we are working on some great Title I events at our elementary school, where on, I think it's next Friday on the 11th, we have the PTO Fall Fest. So we know that that's an awesome evening, but we are also going to try to bring academics into that and have a Title I table set up where the intervention team and myself, we are going to be working on distributing different math and reading items to our parents and how to work with their children at home. So it's always a really busy evening, but we're really excited for that. And then also on the 23rd of October, we have our first federal programs meeting of the year at the elementary school. So I try to make it as exciting as possible, but we really appreciate any parents that would like to, parents and guardians that would like to attend to learn more about our programming at the elementary school. So it's just a really busy month. We're really excited, a lot of fun events. And of course, we just learned about another October event happening with the voter registration. So really excited to add that to the list as well. Thank you.
All right, any questions for Ms. Snyder on curriculum overview for this month?
Real quick, next month, will we be getting an overview of what curriculum is currently being looked at for next year?
Absolutely. I can bring, and we can even go over the cycle again, just to show you kind of like what the plans are and where that's going.
Is it social studies this year?
We have some different ones going on. And again, I have some, you guys approved some curriculum at the last board meeting, but it wasn't all the courses in those subjects. So we're kind of finishing up some of that work this year as well. But you'll get to kind of see that picture of where we're moving. So we can definitely return to that and talk about it.
Just the ones that we're looking at reviewing this year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thanks.
All right, kind of transitioning now, we'll take our first glance at the academic calendar already for the 25-26 school year. So just kind of taking a look at that in our first planning version. Just this calendar here as our first version 1 that's exactly what it is. Is a first version 1. It's a first attempt at a draft. It is and very much replicates what this academic calendar is. So looking at it, some important dates to highlight. As you'll see this version here in front, you'll see a hard copy of that version in your packet under your caucus agenda. And proposed first school day is August the 20th of 2025. Some other important dates, winter break will be December the 24th to January the 2nd. Kind of a very long winter break this year because of how New Year's falls. Yeah. And then students will be back January the 5th. So you have a 2-hour early dismissal then on the 23rd? On the 23rd, proposed, yes, at that time.
Dr. Fox, I see down in the green square, it says we're going to use the 5 flexible instruction days before the snow days. I believe we said the opposite.
That is correct. That to replicate this school year, if we were to replicate this school year, we are using our 3 snow makeup days first, or weather makeup days first before going into the FID days. So replicating, that's correct. That
So-
should be, that language should be changed on here.
Okay. And the other thing I was
If
wondering.
that's the direction you all want to continue.
It's contradictory. It's contradictory because in the snow makeup days box, it says snow days will be used before 5 flexible instruction days, but then in the little green box down below, it says opposite. So it was changed in the blue box that says snow makeup days, that it says the makeup days before FID days, and then the green.
On the current calendar, that green box is just not even there at all. I think it was taken out altogether.
Yeah, we'll just take out the green box there. Absolutely.
And the other comment I had is I'm wondering if we should entertain, and we talked about this last year, decided not to do it, if we should entertain having a snow makeup day in the fall for hurricane weather or whatever. In this case, there was a threat that closed the school, and we were able to, because of certain circumstances, we don't have to make that day up. But should we consider building a makeup day in the fall in case we have flooding or a threat or something that closes the school before snowfall? Just throwing the question out.
Yeah, we do sometimes get some poor inclement weather from tropical storms that come up, and it doesn't take much, unfortunately, to sometimes flood a road or to close different, and to also knock out regionally and locally power lines.
Historically, that day was, I think I talked about this last year, historically, that day was always the Wednesday before Thanksgiving. That was the snow day that was built in the past. Like I'm talking when my kids were
The
in-
26th.
Yeah, so it'd be the Wednesday before Thanksgiving.
Really, that's probably the only day we were looking at. We got Labor Day and Veterans Day, and then the 3 days for Thanksgiving are the only days off.
Well, it could be the Monday after Thanksgiving.
Actually, it could be, especially since hunting, the first day of hunting season is Saturday now instead of Monday. It could be that Monday. Yeah. And often, and I don't know this year, I mean, someone could Google it real quick. I don't know, typically that Sunday is also, is one of the Sunday days.
Oh, is it eligible?
Yeah, so typically the first day of hunting season for buck is the Saturday the 29th, and then Sunday the 30th, and then Monday. So technically the kids would have 3 days in a row to hunt, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. It's not like the first day of buck season. So if we were to build one of those as a snow makeup day, given the understanding we probably won't use it, probably people would rather have to be back on Monday the 1st than on the day before Thanksgiving. I'm thinking of our staff as well that are preparing a meal and having company, traveling.
Yeah, I would agree. I think the likelihood of using it is very, very small, so I wouldn't really split hairs over it, but I would go with the Monday. I think most people would say historically in this district, the reason we had off the Monday was for hunting season, so.
And some will take it off anyway, even though their taxes are filled. But
You're speaking for yourself.
Are we okay making the 1st of December a snow make, no, it's a makeup day in case something, flooding or an electrical outlet or something like happened this year? So is everyone all right with that?
Oh, okay. I make that change.
You want a yes on that?
Yes.
Yes.
We're good. We got enough yeses.
Anyone upset about it?
Yes.
So if I hear correctly, it's adding a 4th makeup day, and that will be day number 1 on 12/1. Thank you. Great.
Then everything else will move down, 2, 3, and 4 will
Yep.
move down.
And truly, if that ends up happening and people are traveling, they have that whole week. It's not like it's the day before Thanksgiving, they need to travel that day to be somewhere. So it just gives them some flexibility for those who are traveling over the holiday.
It's really, with a very long winter break in November, there's not a lot of play in there between those. It feels like we come back.
Changed it years ago.
We've got a couple weeks, and then we're out on that very long.
Well, and I think, again, historically, we never had off 2 days around Veterans Day. We just never did that, and now we are. I understand, the conversation as to why, but that takes out a lot of days in November, and then you've got a lot of days out in December. So it almost makes sense that if you're going to pull an extra snow day, it comes out of one of those days in November.
Does anybody else, somebody mentioned it to me in the community, I don't remember who it was, I don't remember where it was, but I think somebody brought up concerns about commencement being Friday night, and I don't remember why or where or what, but just seeing that there and, looking at this current school year's calendar, the last day of school is Friday, May 30th, but commencement is on the 29th. So I'm just not sure why we potentially moved that to make that a change here on this calendar. Anyhow, that's all that. Can't stay out late on Thursday. Well, Friday, if it's on Friday, that cuts into Mike's drinking time, so, right.
No, I understand what he's saying. Yeah,
But
why-
yeah,
you know
so
why?
sorry, bad joke. Any thought about maybe moving commencement to Thursday night, the 28th? I don't know what it takes, or it is a couple years.
Jonathan, I'm even just thinking of custodial staff that's going to have to the next day pack up all the chairs, tear down the stage, do all that. I mean, unless we want to bring people in overtime on the weekends to do that, I think a Thursday night makes more sense.
All right, so we will make that notation. Thursday night will be graduation. Friday will be half day. So Thursday the 28th.
Then I just have one other question, which has nothing to do with the calendar and is probably why I'm asking it. Why do we have a blurb on there of when the Perry County Fair is? I don't know what it has to do with our calendar. And, but, yeah, but what I'm saying is, it doesn't have to be stated on here. That's all I'm saying. We're not scheduled during Fair Week, right? So I just don't understand why it has to be, like, I know up in Bloomsburg, Mars can speak to this, is that they had it in there because Fair Week was during the school year, and so they always had days off for kids to work at the fair. And I know that that's why they would put it in, but we're not scheduled during the fair. So did you want to say something about why? The reason why? But yeah, I think it's just one of those historical things that I don't know that we have to have on the calendar.
We can eliminate it.
Yeah. The college only has one day off. One other question I had was, because I don't ever remember parent-teacher conferences being on a Friday night. How do you think that's going to go? Wait, I thought that's what it said. Maybe I read it wrong.
Looks like November 10th conferences.
Conference days, November 6th evening, November 7th daytime. Okay, I see it. No, how could it be November 7th daytime?
Under November, it says November 7th evening conferences, under the month of November.
November 7th would be evening conferences.
Yeah, so that's
correct.
a Friday night.
Mm-hmm.
Craig's like,
Well, I think
This year Friday it's day conferences and Thursdays
It's just a typo.
well, it can't be, because we're not off on Friday the 7th. Oh, you mean this year? Yeah, okay. So what are you saying they should be then for 2025? Oh, okay, sorry. So maybe we should talk about that.
Because this down here at the bottom says, like you said in the end, November 6th, 7th,
And 12th, so there's different stuff down in the purple Teacher Day box.
All of these things will be updated in those boxes once we settle on specific dates. Those will be updated as well as marking period dates. Don't get too caught in those. Those will be updated as well in the yellow. All of those will be recalibrated and recalculated. But we didn't want to move many things now and know that there'll be a couple ideations of this calendar.
Teacher conference days in purple they don't align with the calendar above. Like they're November 7th, according to the purple box, says it's a daytime conferences, but up above, under the month of November, it says November 7th are evening conferences. And we're in session on the 7th, so it can't be all day long parent conferences.
Correct. It
And
should be
6th
November the 10th.
Can't be either. February 12th says evening conference. Are there any all day long conferences?
If you're going to align this calendar with last year's calendar, then the evening conferences would take place on the 10th, and the daytime conferences would take place on the 11th,
Of what month?
November. If you do it based on the way it is in this year's, because this year's calendar, the evening conferences are on the day of the teacher in-service day, and the daytime conferences are on Veterans Day.
Well, it looks like the 10th is a day conferences in the month of November.
That's correct.
But that's not listed under the month, and it's not listed in the purple block down below.
But the 11th, Leanne, they don't have, nobody's in school. That's no school day.
I'm just telling you the way it is on this year's
Yeah.
calendar, which is the same color code. It says that the 8th is I don't even know.
Anyway.
But I'm looking at the new one. It's saying that Veterans Day, there's just no school. It's not a teacher in service day.
Got it.
Yeah, we'll need to update the purple to match, but the 10th is designed to be the daytime conferences. So, and then the 7th would be the evening conferences as designated.
And so that's what I'm at. I think that's where my original question came. Do we want to, or how will that feel having evening conferences on a Friday evening?
Friday night. Yeah.
I
mean,
think
we
that's where
certainly could-
stemmed from my whole question.
We certainly could look at it November 6th and then redo to November 10th. It doesn't necessarily have to be consecutive days that we would have those, as long as it was communicated. I don't know. As a parent, my responsibility would be when that date is to go, as long as I knew ahead of time and there would be a requirement or a need for me to go, I certainly would. So I don't know particularly the date, but I'm okay with looking at any of those days accordingly.
How are your teachers going to feel about having to do teacher conferences on a Friday night?
And there could be a football game on a Friday night
Or-
too, right?
Could be football, could be soccer, could be.
Yeah.
And the coaches would not be.
Yeah, and that, sometimes there is absences because of different events. As open house happens, there's different things that get scheduled during that time. So if you would much rather look at the 6th, we certainly could for the evening conference. I will make that notation, and we'll do the 10th during the day.
Maybe yes.
I don't like working on Friday night.
Nope. All right, we will make these changes and get back to you with version number 2. The last kind of overview is I just want to give kind of an overview of our budget timeline that we kind of put together a little bit. The idea of this budget timeline is to talk through this. Our new business manager is slated to start on January the 17th. That is in the midst of our budget season, so we'll get her caught up, but it will be deep into the season. So therefore, it will be committee by design to get this started and begin the process of getting this over the finish line. So just some important dates and timeline. This is more, I think I'm verbally sharing, so it helps keep me and our team kind of rowing in the same direction the best that we can. Today in our cabinet meeting, we shared information to the administrators and directors and to go over and begin that process of looking at the spreadsheets and timelines. And it's early. It's very early. And I know we're just getting our feet wet of this school year, but here we are talking already of 25, 26. And with that said, I always know there's going to be asterisks, there's going to be changes, there's going to be some additions and subtractions. But the sooner we get that information in, the sooner we can take that information and compilate it, and we can then begin to have those meetings that need to occur. On December 10th, my goal to you at the regular board meeting and the reorg meeting is to provide some type of very high-level overview, that 100,000-foot level of what the budget is. That's ambitious, but we'll do our best to try to meet that goal. That will not mean that the budget materials will be available to you at that time. Our goal also is to have the Act 1 resolution, if not in November, hopefully to you in December if it's not available in November. That is the Act 1 resolution is that Act 1 adjusted index produced by the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania that is part of the taxpayer protections that doesn't allow for a certain percentage of increase over that, and you have the ability to adopt or not adopt. If you so choose not to adopt that Act 1 resolution, then that moves the timeline of the budget up dramatically. So therefore, this would be void, and a new version of a timeline would need to be prepared. This is assuming, and again, I apologize for the word assumptions, but this assumes certainly that the Act 1 resolution will be passed and the timeline will be as the timeline has historically been. December and January, we'll begin to have meetings with the building principals and directors, and we'll review internally the budget proposals. The goal is on the January 2025 caucus to have the first review of the budget and to provide that interactive spreadsheet that you had last year, that same format and that same intuitiveness that you had to be able to look at. And then from there, we'll schedule in February, we'll schedule inside of March specific budget meetings to go over those particular cost centers or areas or departments that we'll begin that process of looking at and analyzing together. At the February caucus, we'll have a presentation, as well as the March caucus, where we're looking at, in May, the preliminary budget adoption, where it will sit publicly for 30 days for review upon final completion at the June 2025 board meeting. It's a budget timeline graphic. The next steps that we have thus far is we're going to continue to work with administrators as they've done a great job, and really this is putting it almost a month earlier for them, and they'll continue to work with the departments and teachers to begin to forecast what might be needed. And it's difficult as we look at the possibility of new courses or changing of courses, what might be needed versus what might not be. So we'll do our best to try to forecast that, as well as we may have to come to you later with any additional change that may need to happen. Any new major budget need that we are projecting or it's being asked of us or a change, we will do our best to share that out ahead of time as well as the why associated with that particular driver. Tomorrow we'll begin formally our engineering study, as we'll have the engineers on site tomorrow, as we will spend the majority of the day with them walking through our campus as they annotate, take notes, take pictures, and begin that real deep dive into the study. And once that study is completed, I believe they've said information should come out in November or early December, that will be shared, and that will help drive some of our immediate facility needs that we may have. work to try to estimate as much revenue projection, keeping in mind a conservative approach based upon what we are hearing from the state budget. And we'll work on those interactive books that we used in last year's format to provide for you. That's kind of the budget overview for the timeline. It's ambitious. We'll do our best. There may be some adjustments that are needed along the way, but we'll stay in communication, and it will be a total team effort as we await the start of our business manager following the January Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. holiday. Any questions? That kind of wraps up our caucus agenda for this month.
I want to thank you for that. That's the best outline time-wise that I've seen since I've been on the board to actually have things done following that timeline. So to actually have goals to have things done following that timeline.
Thank you.
And for those of you who are looking, seeing that I'm on the agenda next, I thought I was going to be in Florida next week, but I will actually be here. But we've started preliminarily looking at the budget at the tech school, and there's some stuff going on there budget-wise that's going to hit us and that we need to discuss. So I'm going to try to give a quick overview of what they're discussing budget-wise, and kind of go from there. And if we need more specificity, if anyone wants more specificity, the business manager and I can certainly do that. I don't know that it will be necessary, but that'll be something for everyone to look forward to next week.
Just quick FYI, I will not be here next week. Mike will be front and center. I have to go to Pittsburgh for work, so I will miss the meeting.
All right, everybody, we appreciate it. Thank you for your time, and thank you very much for all the feedback, and we'll make those needed adjustments in our calendar and have that version ready to rock and roll.